I never should have said yes. The desert was no place for a man like me. I wasn't an adventurer. I wasn't some hardened survivalist. I was just a guy who fixed radios for a living. But when my old college buddy Khaled called me up and offered a paid trip to the Rub al Khali, the empty quarter of Arabia, I couldn't resist. 1 week, he promised. We're just surveying some ancient ruins for my archaeology research. What he didn't tell me was that the ruins were in a part of the desert that locals refused to enter. They said it was cursed, haunted, claimed people heard voices carried on the wind, saw shadows move in the heat waves. I laughed it off. That was before the screaming started. The first few days were tolerable, hot of course, hellishly so, but we had gear, a decent Jeep, GPS, satellite phone, enough water and food for 2 weeks. Khaled was giddy with excitement, photographing broken stone columns, sketching fragments of carvings I couldn't read. I spent my time setting up camp, tuning the radio, killing flies. But on the 3rd night, I woke up cold. That in itself was wrong. Nights in the desert are chilly, sure, but this was freezing. My breath fogged in the air. The fire had died out. I sat up, rubbing my arms, and that's when I heard it. A whisper. At first, I thought it was the wind, but it came again. Closer, clearer. Leave. A dry voice, like sand sliding across old bones. I grabbed my flashlight and scanned the darkness. Nothing. Just dunes and stars. Khaled was snoring in his tent. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, I told Khaled. He laughed. "You're dehydrated, man. It messes with your head. You're hearing things." But I drank water, plenty of it. I checked the temperature that night. It dropped again, unnaturally low. I kept the fire roaring. Still, the whispers came. Sometimes they said nothing but my name. Sometimes I couldn't understand the language, but it filled my ears like it was being spoken right beside me. On the 5th day, we found the entrance to the ruins, a stone door half buried in sand, symbols carved around the frame, worn with time. Khaled lost his mind with excitement, saying it was pre-Islamic, possibly older. He begged me to help him dig. Against every instinct, I agreed. We worked for hours, dust in our mouths, sweat mixing with the sand, forming a paste on our skin. Eventually, the doorway was clear. Khaled pushed on it, and it opened, without resistance. The inside was pitch black, colder than outside. The air that escaped smelled ancient, like rot and time. He wanted to go in. I refused. So he went alone, leaving me outside with the sun and the silence. An hour passed. Then 2. Then came the scream. It echoed from within the ruin, sharp, guttural, terrified. I didn't think. I grabbed a flashlight and ran inside. The beam barely cut the darkness. I shouted his name. No answer. The walls were tight, covered in carvings. Not religious, not decorative. Warnings, maybe. Strange figures with twisted limbs, eyes too big, mouths too wide. Symbols that seemed to shimmer when I wasn't looking directly at them. The deeper I went, the colder it got. Then I found his camera. It lay shattered on the ground. No blood, no footprints, just sand. Inside the ruin. I should have run then. But I went deeper. The tunnel opened into a chamber, circular. The walls shimmered like obsidian, but were warm to the touch. In the center was a pit, blacker than the space between stars. I felt it calling to me. No sound, just a pull. My ears popped, my vision tunneled. And then I heard it again. The whisper, louder, inside my skull. Join us. I ran. I don't remember leaving the ruin. I woke up in my tent, morning, sunlight glaring. My clothes were soaked with sweat. The pit still echoed in my mind. Khaled's tent was still zipped shut. But when I opened it, it was empty. Not empty like he'd gone off for a walk. Empty like no one had ever slept there. No bedroll, no bag, no shoes, no trace. Just a thin layer of sand. And the worst part? The Jeep was gone. That was 3 days ago. I've been walking ever since, hoping for a caravan, a signal, anything. The satellite phone won't turn on. The radio's dead. My canteen's almost empty. But the whispers, they haven't stopped. Sometimes I hear Khaled screaming. Sometimes I hear myself pleading. Sometimes I see movement at the edge of the dunes, figures tall and stretched, their limbs bending the wrong way. Their mouths never open, but I hear them. I tried to follow the sun, but it rises in the wrong direction now. At night, the sky has no stars, just darkness, and the whispers. Always the whispers. If someone finds this notebook, if any of this makes it back, don't go to the ruins. Don't listen to anyone who tells you the place is special or sacred or important. The desert doesn't care who you are. It swallows the curious. And if you hear a voice calling your name on the wind, it's already too late. I thought I was alone in the desert. That was the first mistake. I'd been driving for nearly 6 hours, off-road, chasing a rare sandstorm I was trying to film for a documentary. The sky had turned that sickly yellow-orange hue just before sunset, and the dunes ahead rippled like waves frozen in time. The wind had begun to pick up, shrieking through the cracks in my truck windows like a living thing. It was supposed to be just me, my gear, and the open silence of the dunes. But when the sun vanished and the storm hit, things started to go very wrong. The sand hit like needles. Thick, suffocating clouds surrounded the truck in minutes. I couldn't see more than 2 feet outside the windshield. I killed the engine and waited, tried to keep calm. The storm was loud, yes, but I'd seen worse. It should pass. But then the wind changed. It stopped howling and started moaning. I can't explain it. It wasn't natural. The wind didn't just make noise. It carried something else inside it, something deep, hollow, like voices, like hundreds of mouths trying to speak through dry throats. I turned off the radio just to make sure it wasn't interference. That's when I heard it clearly. A laugh. Not loud, not human, and not outside. It was coming from the back seat. I spun around, heart hammering, but there was nothing there. Just my equipment, a few bags, a cooler, and yet I swear I saw something move just for a split second, like a dark silhouette crouched low, then vanishing into the air. I locked the doors. The storm raged on for hours. I couldn't sleep. Every few minutes, the wind would rise in pitch like it was screaming, then low again like it was whispering, saying things I couldn't make out. I told myself it was just the pressure playing tricks on my ears. Until the glass cracked. A long spiderweb crack snaked across the windshield without impact. The sand outside wasn't heavy enough to do that. I was 1,000 miles from the nearest town, and my truck was my only lifeline. I cursed under my breath and grabbed the radio. Dead. No signal. That's when I noticed the footprints. They were human, barefoot, small, leading from the side of my truck across the dune and disappearing behind the curtain of sand. No one should have been out here. No tracks when I arrived, and I certainly hadn't stepped out. But the worst part? there was only one set of footprints. No return trail. Someone or something had come but never left. Against every instinct, I opened the door and stepped out. The sand hit me hard, but I followed the tracks anyway. 10 feet, 20, 50. And then they stopped. Not faded, just stopped. Right in the middle of the dunes, like the person vanished into thin air. Then I heard the laugh again, right behind me. I turned, expecting to see someone, or something. But there was no one. No figures, no shadows. Just sand, wind, and the open door of my truck. It had closed itself, and the engine was running. When I finally made it back, gasping and half blind, the truck lights flickered. The dashboard glowed blood red. The fuel gauge danced between full and empty. The windshield? Now completely cracked, as if something inside had pushed outward. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat with my back against the door, flashlight in one hand, a wrench in the other. At some point, the storm stopped, but the silence was worse, because I could still hear breathing inside the truck. But no matter how much I looked, under the seats, in the back, in the compartments, there was no one there. Yet I felt them. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt them move a little closer. At dawn, I drove. No direction, just away. Away from that spot, away from the footprints, away from the wind that sounded like it wanted to wear my skin. I drove until the dunes flattened, until I hit cracked earth and dry rocks. Eventually, I found an old gas station. Abandoned, but the roof gave shade. When I stepped out of the truck, the footprints were back, fresh, leading from the inside of the truck to right behind me. I left the truck. I walked for miles. Eventually, a Bedouin shepherd found me, said I was lucky, said I had the look of a man who'd heard the hollow wind. I asked him what that meant. He didn't smile. "The desert speaks," he said, "but not everyone should listen." I never went back. I left the gear, the truck, everything. I don't film anymore. I don't even leave the city. But at night, when the wind brushes against my window just right, I swear I still hear the laughing. And sometimes I find sand on my bedroom floor. I never believed the stories my grandfather told me. Old desert legends, he said. Cursed places. Things that lived beneath the dunes. I used to laugh at him until last week. Until I dug too deep. I work in geological surveying. We were mapping a rarely explored stretch of desert somewhere near the Algerian border. Dry, silent land, nothing but sand and forgotten stones. On the third day, our instruments detected something strange underground. A hollow space, roughly 50 feet down. No records, no natural explanation. Some of the team thought it was an old cave or collapsed well. I thought it might be an archaeological find. We were wrong. We set up a dig. By nightfall, we uncovered stone, a perfect circle of dark basalt carved with deep spiral patterns. Not erosion, not natural, deliberate. Symbols none of us could identify. There was a small hole at the center, just wide enough for a person to crawl through. I volunteered. God help me. The air changed the moment I went down. Cold, still, like the desert above had never existed. My flashlight flickered as I crawled through a tight tunnel of black rock, the spiral carvings continuing along the walls. They pulsed, almost as if breathing. I told myself it was just a trick of the light, just nerves. Then I found the room. It was vast, a dome beneath the earth, far older than anything I've ever seen. Bones were scattered across the floor, human, but too long, too thin. Some twisted into unnatural shapes, curled like they died screaming. And on the far wall, etched in dried blood, one word in faded Latin: Sileo. I knew enough to translate it. Silence. Suddenly, I couldn't hear anything. Not the echo of my footsteps, not my own breath. Total silence. I spoke, shouted. No sound. Then something moved. Not behind me, beneath me. The ground pulsed. Something was waking up. I turned and ran. As I crawled back through the tunnel, I felt it following, pressing against the stone. Something huge, slithering, whispering in a silence so loud it made my ears bleed. Just as I reached the surface, the stone seal behind me slammed shut on its own. The rest of the team was gone. The camp deserted. No tracks, no vehicles, only the spiraled hole and that awful silence humming through the sand. I wandered for hours before I was found, delirious, sunburnt, half insane. They said I was the only one there, but I know what I heard, what I felt, and now the silence follows me. I hear it in my dreams. I wake to find sand on my sheets, spiral symbols drawn on my walls. Sometimes, late at night, I press my ear to the ground, and I swear, it's still moving down there, waiting. They told me the desert was empty, just sand, sun, and silence. But the desert watches. And now I know I should never have gone alone. I'm a photographer, not a famous one, not yet, but I specialize in abandoned places, ghost towns, forgotten trails, things people left behind. So when I heard about the ruins of a lost caravanserai in the heart of the Saharan desert, I booked a trip immediately. Locals in the village nearby warned me. They said the place was cursed, that even Bedouins don't go there. They called it Ain Rimal, the Eye of the Sand. But I thought it was just a story to scare tourists. I was wrong. I arrived near sunset. The guide left me with a jeep, plenty of water, and a satellite phone. He said he'd pick me up the next morning, but refused to stay. Don't go near the well, he told me before leaving, even in daylight, especially not at night. Of course, the first thing I found was the well. It was in the center of the crumbling ruins, half buried in the sand, ringed with strange stones, like vertebrae. The well's mouth was wide and covered with a rusty metal grate. It didn't look like much, but something about it felt wrong, like it was breathing. I set up camp a good distance away, but I couldn't stop looking at it. That night, I heard whispers. They didn't come from the wind. They came from beneath. I sat up in my tent, heart pounding. I turned on my flashlight and scanned the dark dunes. Nothing. Then I heard sand shifting, like something crawling, dragging, closer. I got out of the tent. There were footprints around the well. But here's the thing. They weren't human. They had too many toes, and they moved in a circle, like a dance around the grate. I should have left right then. But I had to take one more picture. I approached the well slowly, flashlight in one hand, camera in the other. The whispers grew louder. Not words, just breath. I crouched, aimed the camera, and took a shot. The flash fired, and the grate shook. Just once, like something hit it from below. I stumbled back, breath caught in my throat. Then the sand around the well shifted, like it was falling inward, but there was no wind, just movement. Something was rising. I turned and ran. I didn't stop for the tent. I just jumped into the jeep and drove. I didn't care where.
I just wanted distance between me and that place. But no matter how far I drove, the dunes looked the same. The same rocks, the same broken stones, even the same well. I circled back 3 times without realizing it, until I saw the footprints again. Now there were more, dozens, hundreds, crawling in patterns all around the Jeep. And that's when I understood. The desert wasn't letting me go. I sat in the Jeep until sunrise, clutching my camera. When the guide arrived, he looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. "You saw it, didn't you?" he whispered. I didn't answer. I just handed him the camera. He scrolled through the images, silent, until he got to the one I took of the well. He froze. Then he deleted it. "What the hell are you doing?" I yelled. He looked at me, deadly serious. "You don't bring its image with you," he said. "Not even that." I tried to recover the photo later. It was gone, completely wiped. The file name was replaced with a single word: below. It's been a week. The desert hasn't left me. I wake up with sand in my mouth. I hear whispers in my walls. My dreams are full of dunes that breathe and eyes that blink without faces. I took a picture of my bedroom window this morning. Just light, no shadows. But when I looked closely, there were footprints in the reflection and the sound of sand shifting, always getting closer.